So you've got a cold, damp house and you turn on the heating and the house immediately feels drier. So the air's drier, right? Wrong. When you heat air up, what you're basically doing is increasing the capacity of that air to hold moisture. So by heating a damp house that has quite a lot of moisture in it, you're basically masking the problem by tricking yourself into thinking you've solved it. In fact, you've made the problem worse because damp air is much harder to heat, so your heating bills are going to rise. And also, all that moisture in the air has got to go somewhere and it's going to dump itself onto the first cold surface it can find. By which we're talking about badly insulated windows and cold surfaces that have a bad airflow through past them. So how do we control moisture then? Well, we all know what happens when it gets cold. The instinct is to shut tight all the windows, close the trickle vents on them, and some of you will even be taping up air bricks. And this problem is even worse in new builds, which are designed under building regs to be airtight on handover. And how does this happen? Well, quite simply through cooking, showering, hanging up clothes to dry, and breathing. And with breathing, we're emitting 1 cup of water a day. Now, we can't do anything about breathing, obviously, but we can do a significant amount to reduce the moisture generated by the other 3. So if you've got a kitchen extractor fan, please turn it on when you're boiling stuff. And ideally, open a window as well, because an extractor fan is not very effective when it's operating in a room with no through draft, because you're creating a sort of vacuum. And that makes it harder to extract the moisture. When it comes to showering, and this is a controversial one that drives my family crazy, always try and keep the window open when you're showering, because you can see in this clip here just how much moisture goes out the window during this event. And also keep the bathroom door shut to prevent that moisture going around and circulating around the rest of your flat or house. If you haven't got a window, make sure you've got a decent extractor fan installed. Now, I'm obsessed with doing this. I normally use this cheap old IKEA squeegee, but I used this Karcher window vat this morning to squeegee down our shower because I wanted to show you just how much water it removes, nearly 200 millilitres. Squeegee your shower down after each use, and by that I'm talking about the walls, the glass screen, and also the tray. And if I hadn't done this, all of that water during the course of the day would have been taken up into the air and circulating around my house. And the chances are that water will end up as mould on a cold surface at some point. And if you haven't got a window or an extractor fan, consider getting yourself a dehumidifier, because that will set to work removing all of that damaging moisture whilst you're out. Next up, we've got drying clothes. Now, I've been bombarded on my news feed on my phone recently with article after article about heated areas. Because let's face it, even if we've got a tumble dryer, chances are we're not going to turn it on this winter because electricity is becoming so expensive. But the problem is hanging up and drying your clothes inside the house is again massively contributing to the moisture problem. But luckily there are ways you can minimise this. Firstly, by shutting the door of the room where you're drying these clothes and opening the window if you can to maximise the airflow across those clothes while you're drying them, which will also dry them quicker. If you don't have a window in your drying room, again that EBAC dehumidifier that I showed you a few moments ago has a laundry mode on it. Now, I'm not suggesting you use dehumidifiers right through the winter because, again, they are not expensive to run, but not cheap either. And going back to tumble dryers, if your tumble dryer needs an upgrade, if you've got a conventional one like me, then you might look into getting a heat pump dryer, as they use a lot less electricity than conventional. Now, heat pump tumble dryers don't need ducting, you do have to empty them. And I've only recently upgraded the ducting on my tumble dryer, and as it works fine at the moment, I'm not in any massive rush to replace it. But you can manage that moisture level, whatever it may be, by ensuring that your house is well ventilated. Some new homes are equipped with MVHR systems, mechanical ventilation and with heat recovery, which as the name suggests is constantly extracting moisture from the air and replacing it with warm, drier air. But these systems have a lot of ducting pre-installed, which isn't an option for us in these old houses. I have no trickle vents on my windows, but what I do is generally leave them on the first latch, which I can lock. So there is a little bit of air coming through. My daughter's Velux is locked half open too, with the vent at the top always open. And this bathroom window is open pretty much all of the time. And when it isn't, I installed this no-resist backdraft grill, which combined with the Ventaxa Svara Smart Fan, which itself has no backdraft shutter on it, allows quite a lot of air to circulate from outside around the upstairs of the house. So opening those windows in the winter does not bring damp air in. It actually helps to keep your house well ventilated with drier air from outside. And on this point, you probably get mold forming in cupboards, behind bedside tables, wardrobes, anywhere where there isn't a lot of air circulating. I certainly used to get this, and you can help to minimize this by keeping the doors in these rooms open if you have to shut these doors, by making sure that there's a thin gap underneath the door of say 10 millimeters to encourage airflow around the room. And there's a very good reason for this, because by encouraging airflow across these cold surfaces, you're not allowing that moisture laden air long enough to cool down to reach its dew point and dump that moisture onto the cold surface. So my massive call to action to you in today's video is to keep your house as dry as possible this winter.